Greetings, people who obviously have nothing better to do. I went to the store the other day and they asked me to practice social distancing. So I practiced and I practiced and I practiced, and I think I got it right. And also for this video, I'm not wearing a mask. So in previous videos, I talked about how I took the primitive, very simple circle of fifths, or wheel of fifths, whatever you want to call it, and I worked on it, and I came up with my thing called the amplified circle of fifths, a long time ago. And after many years, I brought it out of retirement, and I made a little prettier chart. We talked about that in many videos. All right. And I talked about many of the features, and I think I got up to number 17. I think I talked about 17 of the features. All right. And then I talked about feature number 18, scale shapes. Okay, we went through that with several videos. And there's only one thing left that I know of that I can recall, and that's number 19 would be inversion relationships. I'd like to go over that because I figured out how to get my iPhone to work. It's an old iPhone. And so I got it back in action. That Mac computer camera, that old Mac thing is crappy. I can't use it. So we talked about scale shapes. All right. All right, scale shapes. I went through that many times. We don't need to do it again. And as you know, on the circle of fifths, you can take your handy tool, all right, and you can isolate one quadrant. All right, we can isolate one quadrant with this handy tool here. You can isolate any quadrant. You just move the tool around. There we go. Okay, but for this video, to make it a little simpler, a little easier to see, I'm going to use the quadrant in rectangular form. See, I made it rectangular so it's a little bit easier to visualize, okay? So instead of these slices that go in like this, where it gets narrow and hard to see, I'm just going to use a rectangular shape, okay? Now, I'm talking about inversion relationships today. Now, if you look at your primitive, very, very simple, basic circle of fifths, the one that's been around for hundreds of years, okay? You'll see that you can talk about inversion relationships with the very simple circle of fifths. In other words, here's your tones here, and here's your relative minors, okay? You can talk about inversion relationships with that primitive chart. This one here, but it's very, very limited. All right, you can talk about your perfect fifths and fourths. You can talk about your minor seconds and sevenths, etc., but it's very, very limited. You can see here that you only have basically 5 simple relationships that you can talk about. So when you use my circle of fifths, all right, when you use the complete amplified circle of fifths, you can really go deep now. You can go deeper, and it's better, okay? So we'll take a quadrant, we'll put it in rectangular form, and we'll look at it. Let's say our tonal center is C, all right? Now, we have what I call tri-cell inversion relationships, all right? And one form of these relationships is called straight line. So you see you have your rectangular version of a quadrant, all right? And you go down here and you look at, let's say we take off the bottom 3 tones, all right? And we look at just the top 3 here. We see that we can have straight line relationships. It can go in any one of these ways, all right? That's a straight line relationship. All right, here's an example. This is hard for me to see, even on this little phone here. here's one that goes like this. So that would be your A flat, C, and E. Okay? Now, you see here, from A flat to C, you have a major third, and from C to E, a major third. Then from here, when you go the other way, when you go from E to C, you have a minor 6 interval, and then from C to A flat, you have a minor 6 interval. All right? You can plainly see that. And down here, when you go out in each direction, from C to A flat, you have your minor 6. From C to E, you have your major third. I hope I'm speaking correctly. All right, so that's one example of a straight line, all right, tri-cell inversion relationship. Now let's see what's really going on there when we say that. Let's see what's really going on. Well, here we have that straight line. I mean, it's diagonal, but it's straight, all right? So what you have is your C and your E, okay, your C and your E, and you have an interval of a major third. Now, when you take that C and you move it up above the E, when you move your C up above the E, now you have a relationship, an interval of a minor 6, okay? Now you see that this inverted, all right, these tones inverted, create the same interval that you would have if you went from C to A flat. C to A flat. So you see what I'm talking about? These are your inversion relationships. All right? Now on the very simple circle of fifths, remember I told you there's only a few. But when you take your quadrant and you map it out in a rectangular form, you can plainly see here that you can get a lot of different inversion relationships. In fact, you can get them all. And you can get so much more than you can with the simple, primitive, original circle of fifths. So you can get so much more. Okay, I'll just show you that quickly. Now, if you take your same quadrant in rectangular form, all right, and you pick another tri-cell group, let's say right here like this, F, C, G, right, you blow it up, bring it over here. So here's another straight line example. Here from F to C, you have a perfect 5 relationship. And from C to G, you have a perfect 5. And here from F up to C, perfect 4. C to G, perfect 4. And here, if you go out in either direction, C to F, you see the perfect 4. C to G, perfect 5. And that's another example of a straight line tri-cell inversion relationship that you got from your quadrant. And like I said, this is just a rectangular view so you can see it better, so you can see it easier. Now you get into the other style of relationship, and I call this the Chevron. The Chevron, okay? Now, you took your rectangular quadrant, and we're looking at these tones here. We're making a chevron shape, all right? So we're looking at this. Now, for simplicity, I just left out the other tones, okay? Took out the clutter. And here you have a C, your B, and C sharp. Excuse me. So, for this example, though, we have to change that C sharp to a D flat. All right, we still have our chevron. We have to change it to a D flat. All right, so let me quickly jump to the next page, and I'll tell you why. You see, your relationship of C to C sharp is that of an augmented unison or augmented prime. That's what you would call it, all right? All right? But your relationship from your C to D flat is different. It's a minor second. Now the point I'm making is C sharp and D flat are enharmonic equivalents. They're two different notes, but they sound the same, all right? They are not the same notes, all right? Two different notes. Yes, they sound the same. Your ear's going to say, oh, it's the same. That's the same note. But no, they're not the same notes. So instead of using C sharp from our quadrant, we're going to use a D flat. And I'll show you why. All right, so we moved over We made that a D flat. All right, D flat. Now we go down here and we use our chevron shape, and we see that from B to C we have the minor second. From C to D flat we have the minor second. Then we move from D flat to C, we have a major 7. And from C to B we have a major 7. And if we go out in either direction, all right, C to D flat, you get your minor second, C to B, your major 7. So that's the example of the inversion relationship using the chevron shape, okay? Did you follow that? So what I'm trying to say is you can get so much more good stuff and learn about inversion relationships so much more from my amplified circle of fifths than you can from the traditional simple primitive circle of fifths. You can watch this over and over if you don't get it, but I won't go on and on. You have inversion relationships. Now this is important because for somebody who's paying attention, you say, oh, I see something you missed. Well, back in my previous videos, I talked about how people took the original, ordinary, primitive circle of fifths and they tried to make it bigger, and they stuck the B tone, let's just say B, all right, they stuck the B underneath the C and the A minor, okay, they stuck it in there. It was contrived, it was random, all right? So I don't care for that placement, all right? That B or B diminished symbol, in my opinion, it's contrived. Because if you put it there, then your entire circle of fifths, hold on a second, your circle of fifths concept doesn't work. This doesn't work. It doesn't come out nicely. It doesn't work the way it's worked. In the past videos, I've shown you how beautifully it works. If you place your tones anywhere else here beyond the original, it just doesn't work nicely. Now, you say, okay, well, I understand. And you showed me inversion relationships, all right? You showed me straight line. You showed me chevron. But what about this F sharp here? This is sitting there all by itself. You say, what about that F sharp? What's going on there? Well, if you watched my previous videos, I talked about the C to F sharp interval. It's an augmented 4, an augmented fourth, okay? It's called an augmented fourth to this day, right? Well, many, many years ago, hundreds of years ago, they intuitively or mystically felt something, and they referred to that interval as diabolos and musica, or you would say the devil in music, all right? And by the 1700s, this was a common phrase that was used, and eventually, in modern times, we just say the devil's interval. But see what happened here? This interval kind of spooked people. It kind of didn't fit in. They didn't know what to do with it. Okay, I talked about that. They kind of didn't know what to do with it. So if you just give me a few more minutes, I'll show you what I've done with it. All right? Now, you have your quadrant, and I show it again in rectangular form so it's easier to see. Right? We move over. We take out all the extra tones we don't need so we can plainly and clearly see the tonal center and the F sharp, all right? But to explain this, it's very complicated, very strange, and I'm probably the only person who talks weird like this, but what I did was I took these 3 little cells, or squares, okay? These are cells, and I blew them up, made them bigger, all right? That's your C in that cell. There's that blank cell because we took the tones out. And I split this cell. See this one here? I split it into F sharp and G flat, the enharmonic equivalent, okay? They sound the same, all right? They sound the same, but they are not the same note. Now, I did that because it's very important. Once you do that, once you split this cell, then you can use your chevron shape, and you can go back to my concept, my system, and you can understand what's going on. So you see here from F sharp to C, you have your diminished 5. And from C to G flat, you have your diminished 5. When you go in this direction, G flat to C, or C to F sharp, you have your augmented 4, which we talked about repeatedly. And over here, if you go out in each direction, you have C to F sharp, augmented 4, C to G flat, diminished 5. I hope I'm talking correctly. And you see where the devil's interval can be analyzed, it can be understood better, and it can be processed if you just take the amplified circle of fifths and you push deep, and you push and you make the chart work for you. See, basically, you take this chart and you say, well, okay, well, Joey made this stupid chart, and I don't understand what the hell he's talking about. Well, if you look at it over time and you study it, the chart itself will prompt you and poke you and get you to think. It'll just make you think. There's so much stuff in here. It's just incredible. In fact, that's why on my list of features, there were so many, because it just happens. When you put the tones together in that order, when you put the chart and you arrange it this way, it took me a long time to figure it out, you end up getting feature after feature. So today, I just covered the feature number 19, I call it, inversion relationships. And like I said, you can look at inversion relationships from the very simple original circle of fifths. You can get a few. See, you can get a 5, maybe 5. But that's not enough. I don't think that's enough. So I have tricell inversion relationships. I just went over it. And that's just another feature. So I'm going to wrap it up here. And since my last videos, I had to move. We weren't forced to move, but we had to move to a different house. We have kind of a crappy area here, and people are violent and noisy and nasty. So I don't know how long I can continue doing this. I'd like to be patient and try to get through it, but it's a little crazy out there. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Good night.